Thank you, Suchitra, and thank you for this opportunity. As Suchitra mentioned, we'd first talk about the anatomical, if you go anatomically, the sclera comes first, and that's why we discuss the approach in a patient who has scleritis. So we all know that it's an inflammation of the sclera. There's a very characteristic clinical picture. It's painful, it's an indolent, that is slow progressive, and it destroys the tissues locally. In addition, it may be associated with serious systemic disease, and it can also spill over, the inflammation can spill over into the cornea, episclera, as well as into the uvea. How do you approach a patient who walks into your clinic who could potentially be a patient with scleritis? I ask myself these questions. The first question would be, is it scleritis? Or perhaps it's episcleritis? Or could it be a masquerade, meaning it's not scleritis, episcleritis, but something else? The second question I need to ask myself is it necrotizing or non-necrotizing? If there is some necrosis or if there's a nodule, is it infectious? Because as Suchitra mentioned, that we see a slightly different clinical spectrum as compared to what is in the textbooks or what is published from Western literature. And infections can be a reasonably large part of our disease here. Which investigations are necessary? And what is the management strategy? Of course, we don't wait and keep asking these questions, but everything goes hand in hand. Examination is relatively easy when you have a patient who walks into your clinic with extremely deep and intensely congested eye, with areas showing scleral thinning and bluish hue of the uveal tissue there. This is another patient with a nodule superiorly, which could have presented like this in the initial stage, but as the process is treated, the patient shows this staphyloma formation. Generally, daylight or clinic light examination is more useful than putting the patient on the slit lamp, and this is very easy to diagnose. When you have a slit beam, you can see nicely that there's a nodular scleritis kind of approach here, and there's maximum congestion which is in the episcleral network. The slit beam being forwardly displaced. And in the case of diffuse anterior scleritis, the patient has come to you in the subclinical course or partly treated course of the disease. And one very interesting kind of examination would be using the red-free filter, and you could see this particular area is corresponding to this area of capillary dropout, suggesting that there were areas of previous scleritis. This classification still holds very good even in our clinic. So you divide it as infectious versus non-infective, and when it's non-infective you look at anterior and posterior scleritis. When it's anterior, you think of it as either a diffuse process or a nodule or a necrotizing process. You know, if it's necrotizing, classically you have those two situations where there is with and without inflammation. This is clinically, meaning that the patient may not be very symptomatic, so you call it as without inflammation. But if you see the tissue under a microscope, you'll see that both the cases do have inflammation, of course, but the very silent kind of cases would suggest to you more like a rheumatoid arthritis kind of picture. So in this table, it's kind of easy to understand that if you have a patient who has a nodule, but it's not exactly necrotizing, but there's necrosis, that can actually be an infective process. These are the garden variety cases of scleritis where you have diffuse, very severe congestion in the anterior compartment of the sclera, as well as areas suggesting that there could have been a healed kind of process here. You can see that there are areas showing this dropout of capillaries initial stage, and that's why the tissue looks so ischemic in these regions. And there is also some spillover into the cornea with peripheral inflammation in the corneal region. Another case which shows a nodule here, the process is an ischemic kind of necrosis taking place, seen better with the red-free filter. This is our patient who walks in. Very often they won't walk in with hallmark features of rheumatoid arthritis like these two cases here. This patient has the typical deformities of the hands, and this lady has swelling of the ankle joint corresponding to the picture of the eye is from this lady, which corresponds to scleromalacia perforans, and this has progressed over time, although the patient was on continued immunosuppressive therapy. Posterior scleritis is a totally different clinical presentation where the patient does have pain, especially maybe on ocular movements, but when you examine anteriorly you can't really see any inflammation. But when you look at the fundus, you can see what you could mislabel initially as maybe a choroiditis patch, and FA also would show you findings which suggest that, but the giveaway would be when you do B scan, you notice that the inflammation is in the choroid, and that's why there is spillover fluid, and you have the classic T sign, which is fluid in the subtenon space. A patient who walks into your clinic with peripheral ulcerative keratitis, you know, has a highly increased chance of associating with systemic disease. This is a 45-year-old lady who walked into our clinic. She had this peripheral ulcerative keratitis, very congested episcleral tissue and conjunctiva. And what you noted is this area of melt in the scleral region. After various diagnoses, first we thought of infection and then we kept investigating the patient. Finally, we discovered that the patient has vaginous granulomatosis based on ANCA positivity and also biopsy or lymph node biopsy subsequently. This patient did very well after we started the patient on immunosuppressive therapy. This is another patient who was diagnosed later by us to have relapsing polychondritis. This patient had multiple episodes of diffuse anterior scleritis. In addition, there are these peripheral ulcerative pinpoint lesions which the patient would have whenever she came in with active disease. And the reason for diagnosing her as relapsing polychondritis is that she had breakdown of the nasal cartilage, that is, she had cartilage involvement as well as scleritis, and she had multiple myalgias in her body, and that those fulfill the McAdams criteria for relapsing polychondritis. This patient continues to be on immunosuppression for years together. These were the earlier pictures, and even in 2012, she's still on systemic immunosuppression because relapsing polychondritis is one of the diseases associated with increased mortality if you don't treat. Some unusual cases that I shall discuss is a 28-year-old male who presented with redness and swelling like this. When you examined the anterior compartment, you could see this nodule located in the fornix.